Hey, it's TDA, and today I'm going to finish my guides on Outward Station, at least for now, because we're getting to the end game, and this is also the part of the game that I would expect is going to change quite drastically over the next few months as this game is developed in early access. At this point, you should be producing some Station 8 expansion level ships, Neutron Explorers and Stratus Shutters, as you can see, and you're starting to produce quite a large number of ships, and something the game does tell you, I believe, but this might not be really clear, is that you can actually click on these things to send the ships out early on. So I'm going to mention this right at the beginning of this episode because we're going to make a massive amount of ships, and this is a very easy way to clear things out. If you're waiting for your ships to complete, I highly recommend that you go out and explore all the 3 zones that you have available to you at the moment. You want to grab all the upgrades for your station and your drone, and you might also want to start working towards some of these nodes over here. In general, make sure that you start producing power first. I would recommend you start expanding your power in the second zone that you unlock, the Titania zone, because that's where all your hydrogen is going to come from. So you need to make sure that your hydrogen production is actually powered up, so you can use that in order to produce the power everywhere else. If you have enough power and you've done all your exploring, you might as well start tapping into all the available resources. Now, make sure that you have everything upgraded to Mark II miners, because you're going to need all the resources you can get. And if you want to be really lazy, you can just hook up a wormhole to every single one of your mining facilities. I started to name them unused so I could remember that they were not used, but as long as they're not linked up, you could safely assume that they're not being used either. So this is probably a naming convention that you don't need to copy. If you feel like being even lazier, what you might also want to do is just connect this all the way up to your main base. Remember, if you keep pressing shift, you can just keep expanding, keep expanding, keep expanding. Now, you can do this all the way to your main base. Do I recommend doing this? Not really, but can you do this? Yes. So if you feel like you don't want to connect everything up with wormholes or with ships, you can actually just use connectors, and these things cannot be damaged by asteroids at the moment. So it's a very lazy, foolproof way, at least for now, to connect up your station so you can actually build one giant station across the entire area. Now, I would recommend you stick with wormholes and or ships, but of course you do you. It shouldn't take you too long to complete level 8, and then you are going to get to level 9, and this is where things start to really slow down, and you definitely need to start optimizing your factory if you haven't done so yet. You're going to need some heavy haulers, photon tankers, aeon couriers, and some microfusion reactors, along with some nitrox. Now, the nitrox you've already been producing for quite a while now, so this is probably not going to be the problem. Everything else is, though. However, the aeon couriers are something you can already make. You're already producing all of this, so I recommend that you start just instantly producing these, so because you're going to need 250 of them. And remember, you can just send whatever you have out, so you don't have to have 250 ships waiting here. It took me a while to figure that out, so yeah. That also holds, by the way, for older ships that you might have built. You can just delete them if you feel like you don't want to have this whole trash heap sitting right next to your factory. Anyway, so that takes care of the Aeon Couriers, and you're also going to need some Photon Tankers. You can build those in here already as well, I believe. Let me double check because I don't remember for sure. Yeah, you should have everything you need. Now, however, the Photon Tankers are going to need nanoplating and reinforced frames, and as you will notice from my previous episode, that is typically the thing you're bottlenecked on the most. So, let's go and fix that first. You now have access to another zone. This is the ice zone. Looks awesome, by the way, and the game tells you to go there to grab these water nodes for easy nitrox production. However, you don't really need these water ice nodes, in my opinion, because there's already a water ice node in the first zone, and of course you can grab some more water if you really need it, but nitrox is not going to be your main bottleneck. Instead, like I said, you want the nanoplates. Now, there is also some carbon, some silica, and some titanium somewhere. Where is it? Gold, titanium. So basically, there's a little bit of everything in this zone. I recommend that you put this to use. As always, make sure you set up some fuel production first, just to get the nitrogen flowing, and then start expanding your fusion reactors as needed. Now, there's also a couple of upgrade nodes in this sector as well, only a handful of them or so. But yeah, you might want to grab those and make sure you upgrade your drone to the maximum amount that the game allows for now. Then what you want to do is make sure you get some of that silica in, you get some of that titanium in, and start smelting that all to titanium ore as well as the bonding. Now this is a lot more bonding than we need, molecular bonding to be precise, but we're going to be using that not just here but actually in our main factory as well. So hold that thought for a moment. In the meanwhile, just have a set of matter printers to make sure you have plenty of plates going, and then you can have an equal amount of fabricators making nanoplating. And voila, you have another 8 of these fabricators making nanoplates. And because they're only going at a rate of about 5 per minute, depending on how far you upgraded them, this is still only 40 per minute. So that's a tiny, teeny amount, but it's the maximum you can get out of this system for now. With those additional nanoplates flowing in, it should now be fairly easy to actually expand your base in a rapid way. So let's go back to the third zone. There's a lot of resources here, and what you want to grab is 2 silica bases completely upgraded to Mark II miners, along with all the production materials that go along with that. You need 1 fully upgraded carbon mining operation as well, and then you just need a tiny little bit of gold to go along with that. And with all of that set up, you can do something really cool like this. I have 4 wormholes set up, and again, you can do this with normal ships, but look at how cool this looks, so this is why I'm going with that. We have the gold coming in, we have fiber optics coming in, so the silica is completely dedicated to making fiber optics, which is why we have 2 of these wormholes bringing in fiber optics, because we have 2 entire bases dedicated to that. And then last but not least, we have the carbon dedicated to making diamonds, which apparently I can't spell, but anyway, their diamonds are coming in over here. Now, what are we making here? We have 3 fabricators making circuit boards, and we have another 3 making computers, and then last but not least, the diamonds are going to go in here, and this is where we're making superconductors. Now, these are not actually perfectly ratioed. I initially started with that, but you only need 2 of these to make all the circuit boards, and I think 2 to make computers as well, and you need 3 to make all the superconductors that you need, but I figured why not just add in the additional machines and make it look pretty. Now, for the same reason, you only actually need 1 manufacturer, I believe, but I made 2 because it looks kind of cool, and then of course I concluded that I kind of messed it up because everything should be 1 tile to the right, and that would have nicely aligned symmetrically with my wormhole. But since this game doesn't have blueprints and I didn't feel like rebuilding everything, I just left it as it is. But anyway, the manufacturer is being used to make the supercomputers, as you can see over here. These are going to be used in pretty much everything that we're doing in the last stages of this level. So we're going to need to have these mass produced for the moment. You're also going to want to upgrade the alloy production because we're going to need a lot of those as well. So make sure you do that. There are a couple of tungsten nodes in the bottom corner over here as well, I believe. Not sure if I can tell like this. No, because as soon as you build over that, it's apparently not possible to hover over them anymore. But yeah, there's 2 tungsten nodes in this area. Make sure you are digging into that and make sure you have enough titanium to go along with that as well, so you can make all the super alloy that you need. In the previous level, you didn't really need that much alloy yet, but now, yes, we definitely need all the alloy we can get. And the reason for that is very simple. I'll show you that here in a moment. I have another 3 wormholes over here. One is bringing in the plates and bonds that we made at the beginning of this episode. One is bringing in the supercomputers that we made. And this one is bringing in all the alloy. Now, what is this hooked up to? Another set of manufacturers. This one is making the heavy frames, and as you can see, this needs the reinforced frames a lot, with quite a lot of alloy, as you can see. We also have one making the advanced plating, which of course needs nanoplating because everything needs nanoplating, along with another pretty hefty amount of super alloy. And we have the manufacturer over here making the medium engines. And of course that needs more plating and more reinforced frames along with the small engines. And if you look at the small engines over here that we are producing, look, those needs plates. So yeah, plates, 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 plates everywhere. And then last but not least, we are having another set of manufacturers making the microfusion reactors that we need in order to complete the quest. And look, more super alloy. And of course all of this is also taking in quite a bit of resources as well. But anyway, this is everything we need in order to complete this level. Oh yeah, as a side note, if you feel like your FPS is dropping, that probably has something to do with a couple of 100 ships sitting around doing nothing. So, like I said before, make sure you have those ships leaving, because that is going to massively reduce your load on your CPU. So, or I'm not sure if it's actually the CPU or the GPU, but anyway, it will speed up your game. So make sure that you do that every now and then. I keep forgetting, and yeah, it's probably not a good thing. We want to start building medium ships now as well, so you can't actually build those medium ships in these small shipyards. You're going to need the medium version of that. Before you do that, make sure you have another wormhole and have that ready to bring in fuel, because these medium ships will require you to be fueling them actively. If you don't, because of course we're already fueling these ships as well, but medium ships will actually explode if you don't fuel them in time. So make sure you have the full fuel already first, and then start worrying about actually building the ships. When producing your medium ships, I would highly recommend that you have more than one fueling depot. For the simple reason that as soon as one of these ships gets built and it gets transported to the fuel depot, the next ship is already being built, and it takes about 2 minutes to fill up one of these medium ships, just because of the amount of flow through you can have in a single station. So having 2 of these will actually help you make sure that your ships don't blow up. In case of emergency, as you can see, all my timers started out at 5 minutes, and the reason for that is that currently, whenever you reload your game, the timer restarts at 5 minutes. Is that intended? Probably not, but it is a way to kind of just restart your timer just by reloading your game in case of emergency. Don't rely on it too much, but for now, at least that works. Now, I wanted to have some fun and see what it would look like to have all the 375 ships at the same time on my screen, and the answer is something like this. They can actually barely fit on the screen, but once you have everything up and running, you should be able to just complete this, almost blow up your PC, having all these ships fly off at the same time, and get to the next stage of the game. Now, at this point, you will start to unlock a couple of new things, but you've kind of reached the end of the early access for now. There's actually 2 more levels after this, but things will start to go so slow that I wouldn't blame you if you are like, let's just skip that for now. However, what you need to do at this point is build some military ships. In order to do that, the main thing that we haven't actually produced yet are the light missile ammo that we need. Everything else is pretty much already supplied. So there's a couple of things to note. If you want to start building the Mason lifters, you already can, because they need all the materials that you should have already in production. It needs a lot more of them. It needs 20 advanced plating, 15 heavy frames, and 2 microfusion reactors, which only is a lot on top of some supercomputers. And then to make matters worse, I wanted to show this. Oh, come on. As you can see, the Mason lifter needs 1500 hydrogen in order to be completely fueled. That's a lot, which also means that you should upgrade your fuel depots to Mark II. Now, this of course needs more plating and more heavy frames, along with some other materials. So make sure that you do that, because otherwise you will actually not have enough time to fully fuel up this. You're going to be cutting it really close, and you don't want these very expensive ships to blow up. In order to produce the missiles, all you need to do is build a couple of ammo factories. One to make warheads from the nitrox and bonding that you've already been producing en masse, so that shouldn't really be much of a problem. But then you're also going to need a second ammo factory to make the missiles. It takes the warheads, it takes some more plating, because of course why not, and some small engines and frames as well. And then you're going to be churning out some missiles. Now you're going to need 1,000 of them just for the base quest, but you're also going to need quite a few of them to arm your military vessels, because for example, these Stratos interceptors each need 4 missiles to be armed. Now that is of course just a single production line over here, but as you can see, these things are pretty expensive. So that is going to take quite a while, and on top of that you're going to need 250 of them. So this is another 1,000 missiles right there. Now then, last but not least, the Mason archers are also going to need to be armed, and you can produce those in your medium vessel construction over here. So the Mason armor archers, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, also require a hefty 1,000 fuel, not quite as bad as the lifters, but still. And as you can see, they need all the same materials as the lifters as well. On top of that, you will need some missile launchers and some generators. You might not yet be producing missile launchers, but you only need to add in just a couple of manufacturers to do that. Now remember that these missile launchers again need more plating and heavy frames, and this is the point in the game where I again wouldn't blame you if you're like, yeah, okay, I'll just let it idle for a couple of hours to complete all of this, because you should have tapped into all the resources on the map in every single zone, and there's no new zone added in this for the moment. So until we get Mark III miners, which are on the roadmap, so that should be hopefully somewhere in the next couple of weeks or months, you are kind of just bottlenecked on the amount of resources you have to work with. This will actually produce everything you need, so just let it sit there for a couple of hours probably, and that should be fine as long as your power holds up, etc, etc. But things will start to really slow down. And that brings me to the end of this particular set of guides. Now remember, this game is in early access and there is a very clear roadmap that includes a lot of very interesting things that will make it possible to continue this game onwards from this point. There's going to be new technologies, so first of all, that's very important to actually kind of stretch out the end game. But there's also going to be a lot of quality of life things that just make the game more enjoyable at this stage of the game. For example, there are going to be Mark III miners being added fairly soon. It's somewhere in the first few steps of the roadmap. And Mark III miners are, of course, going to make sure that you just have more materials to work with and things won't take quite as long. On top of that, and a little bit further down the roadmap, not only are there new technologies, but there are also things like blueprints. You might have noticed that whenever you're making a mining base, you probably use the same design over and over. Well, making a blueprint out of that will definitely speed things up as well. Things like that are going to make this game even better than it already is, and I think for an early access game, it is very playable, it is very fun. It's probably already a couple of dozen of hours at this point, so definitely worth your money, at least in my opinion, if you like these types of games, but of course, you are the final judge on that. But either way, I will continue to follow this game because I do really enjoy playing it. Now, if you're still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.